I still remember the day I decided to order that DNA test for my son. It was supposed to be fun, something we'd do together during his spring break from college. Jamie had always been curious about his ancestry, and I thought it would be a nice bonding activity. Maybe we'd discover some distant relatives in Ireland, or find out we had Viking blood. I never imagined that a simple saliva sample in a plastic tube would unravel everything I thought I knew about my life. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm 47 years old. I live in a modest 2-bedroom house in Portland, Oregon, where I've raised my son alone since he was 3. His father, David, left us for a younger woman when Jamie was still in diapers. It wasn't the fairy tale I'd imagined when I walked down the aisle at 23, but I'd made peace with it. Jamie and I had each other, and that had always been enough. The kid arrived on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were my late days at the dental office where I worked as a hygienist, and I came home to find the package waiting on the porch. Jamie was home for his week-long break from the University of Washington, and he tore into the box with the enthusiasm of a child on Christmas morning, even though he was 21 years old. "This is going to be so cool." "Mom," he said, his hazel eyes, so much like mine, sparkling with excitement. "What if we find out we're related to someone famous?" I laughed, ruffling his dark hair the way I'd done since he was little, even though he now stood 6 inches taller than me. "I hate to break it to you, kiddo, but I think our family tree is pretty ordinary. Probably a lot of farmers and factory workers." "You never know," he insisted, reading through the instructions. "Says here it takes about 6 to 8 weeks for results. I'll be back at school by then, but you can call me the second you find out anything interesting." We did the test that night, following the instructions carefully, spitting into the tubes, registering our kits online, and sealing everything up to mail back the next day. Then we ordered pizza and watched a documentary about genealogy, joking about what we might discover. It was one of those perfect evenings that made me grateful for the life we'd built together, just the two of us against the world. The weeks passed quickly. Jamie went back to Seattle, diving into his engineering studies, while I returned to my routine of work, yoga classes, and occasional dinners with my small circle of friends. I'd honestly almost forgotten about the DNA test when the email arrived. It was a rainy Saturday morning in late May. I was sitting at my kitchen table, still in my pajamas, drinking coffee and scrolling through my phone when the notification popped up. "Your DNA results are ready." My heart did a little skip of excitement as I clicked through to the website, entering my password with fingers that trembled slightly. The first page showed the ancestry breakdown, which was pretty much what I'd expected. Lots of British and Irish, some German, a dash of Scandinavian. I smiled, thinking about calling Jamie to tell him he could technically claim to be part Viking. But when I clicked to the relative section, my smile froze. Right there at the top, in the close family category, was a name I didn't recognize. Marcus Chen. The website said he was a close family match, possible half-sibling or grandparent, but that didn't make any sense. I was an only child. My parents had died years ago. Mom from cancer when I was 30. Dad from a heart attack 2 years later. There were no other children, no secrets, no drama. Just me. My hands started shaking as I clicked on the profile. Marcus Chen was 32 years old and lived in San Francisco. His picture showed an Asian man with kind eyes and a warm smile. There was no other information publicly available, but the website allowed me to send him a message. I sat there for a long time, my coffee growing cold, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. A half-sibling? How was that possible? My parents had been happily married for 40 years until my mother's death. Dad had never remarried, and the idea of either of them having an affair or a secret child was absurd. They'd been the most devoted couple I'd ever known, unless there was something I didn't know, something they'd kept from me. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, going through old family photos, searching through the boxes of papers and documents my parents had left behind. There was nothing. No adoption papers, no mysterious letters, no evidence of any family secrets. By evening, I'd convinced myself it had to be a mistake. These DNA tests weren't perfect, were they? Maybe Marcus Chen and I just happened to share enough DNA to confuse the algorithm. But I couldn't let it go. That night, lying in bed unable to sleep, I drafted a message to Marcus. must have rewritten it 20 times, trying to find the right words. How do you reach out to a stranger and say, "Hey, a website thinks we might be related, but that's impossible"? Finally, I settled on something simple. "Hi Marcus, I'm Sarah Mitchell. The DNA test is showing us as possible half-siblings, but I think there might be a mistake. I'm an only child, and my parents never mentioned any other family. Would you be willing to chat? I'd love to figure out what's going on." "Best, Sarah." I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then spent a sleepless night wondering if I'd made a huge mistake. Marcus responded the next morning. "Hi Sarah, I'm glad you reached out. I was surprised to see you pop up too. I'm adopted, so I've been using DNA testing to try to find my birth family. Would you be open to a phone call? I think we have a lot to talk about." Adopted. That word changed everything. I immediately called Jamie, who was in the middle of studying for finals, but dropped everything when he heard the urgency in my voice. "Mom, slow down," he said. "You're not making sense. You found a brother?" "I don't know," I admitted, pacing around my living room. "Maybe he's adopted. He lives in San Francisco. The test says we're closely related, but I don't understand how." "Did you ask Grandma or Grandpa about it before they died?" "There was nothing to ask about, honey. They never mentioned anyone else. They were open about everything, or at least I thought they were." Jamie was quiet for a moment. "Maybe you should talk to him. Find out what he knows." So I did. That evening, I dialed Marcus's number with trembling fingers. He answered on the second ring, and his voice was gentle and warm, putting me immediately at ease. "Sarah, this is Marcus. Thank you so much for calling." We talked for 2 hours that first night. Marcus told me his story, how he'd been adopted as a newborn by a Chinese-American couple in San Francisco who loved him deeply, but had always been honest about his adoption. He'd had a wonderful childhood, but he'd always wondered about his birth family. The DNA test was his attempt to find answers. The adoption was closed, he explained. My parents tried to get information over the years, but there was nothing. The agency that handled it closed down in the 90s. All I knew was that my birth mother was young and not in a position to raise a child. As he talked, I did the math in my head. Marcus was 32. That meant he was born in 1993, which was 11 years before Jamie. I would have been 15 years old. "Marcus, I was born in 1978, I said carefully. "There's no way I'm your birth mother. I had my first and only child when I was 26. "I know," he said. "I saw your age on your profile. That's why the website said half-sibling, not parent-child. The amount of DNA we share suggests we have one parent in common." I felt like the world was tilting. "But that's impossible. I'm an only child. DNA doesn't lie," Marcus said gently. "Look, I know this is a shock. It was for me too. But maybe one of your parents had another child they didn't tell you about." I wanted to deny it, to insist that my parents would never keep such a secret. But even as I opened my mouth to protest, doubt crept in. People kept secrets all the time. Families hid things, even from the people they loved most. After we hung up, I sat in the dark living room for a long time, trying to process everything. If Marcus and I really were half-siblings, that meant either my mother or my father had another child, his child, and gave that baby up for adoption. The thought made me feel sick. Which one of them had betrayed the family, and why had they kept it secret? I barely slept that night, my mind racing through possibilities. By morning, I'd convinced myself that there had to be another explanation. Maybe we were cousins, not half-siblings, and the test had gotten it wrong. Maybe Marcus's adoption records were incorrect. There had to be something we were missing. I threw myself into research, learning everything I could about DNA testing and genetic relationships. I joined online forums, read scientific papers, and consulted with genetic counselors. Everything I learned confirmed what Marcus had said. The amount of DNA we shared, about 25%, strongly indicated a half-sibling relationship. We weren't cousins. We weren't distant relatives. We shared one parent. Over the next few weeks, Marcus and I talked regularly, comparing notes, trying to piece together the puzzle. He sent me the non-identifying information from his adoption records. His birth mother had been 17 years old, unmarried, and had given him up voluntarily. The birth father was listed as unknown, 17 years old. That detail stuck in my mind. My mother would have been 41 in 1993, so it couldn't have been her. But my father would have been 43. Was it possible that my dad had gotten a teenage girl pregnant? The thought made me nauseous. I'd idolized my father. He'd been my hero, the one who taught me to ride a bike, who walked me down the aisle at my wedding, who stayed up all night with me when Jamie had colic. Could that same man have fathered a child with a teenager and then given the baby up? I didn't want to believe it, but I needed answers. The problem was, both my parents were gone. There was no one left to ask. I was an only child, or at least I'd thought I was, and my extended family was small. My mother's sister, Aunt Linda, had died of the same cancer that took my mom. My father's brother, Uncle Robert, had moved to Australia in the 80s, and we'd lost touch years ago. What about Jamie's DNA test? Marcus asked during one of our conversations. Have his results come back yet? I'd completely forgotten. In all the chaos of discovering Marcus, I hadn't even checked. I logged into the website with shaking hands and clicked on Jamie's account. His ancestry results were similar to mine, which made sense. But when I clicked on his relatives section, my heart stopped. There, listed as a close family match, possible uncle or half-sibling, was Marcus Chen. I stared at the screen, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. If Marcus was Jamie's uncle, that meant Marcus was my brother, half-brother technically, which meant one of my parents had definitely had another child. But there was something else. Something in the numbers that didn't quite add up. I wasn't a geneticist, but I'd done enough research by now to understand the basics. The amount of DNA Jamie shared with Marcus was slightly more than what you'd expect for an uncle-nephew relationship. It was right on the borderline between uncle and half-sibling. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. I called Marcus immediately. There's something weird about Jamie's results, I said without preamble. He shares too much DNA with you. Marcus was quiet for a moment. How much? 21%. The website says uncle or half-sibling, but it seems high for uncle. Sarah, Marcus said slowly, I think we need to do more testing. There are more specific tests we can do. Tests that will tell us exactly how we're related. I knew what he was suggesting, and part of me wanted to refuse. But I'd come this far. I needed to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. We ordered the advanced testing kit that night. This one would take longer, 10 to 12 weeks. But it would give us definitive answers about our relationship. In the meantime, I decided to do something I'd been putting off. I would try to find Uncle Robert in Australia. It took me 3 weeks and countless hours on social media, genealogy websites, and international directory assistance, but I finally tracked him down. Robert Mitchell was living in Brisbane, retired and widowed, with 3 grown children of his own. When I called him, he was surprised but delighted to hear from me. We spent the first call catching up, talking about his life in Australia, his late wife, his children. I waited until the second call to bring up the reason for my search. Uncle Robert, I said carefully, I need to ask you about something. It's going to sound strange. Go ahead, love, he said in his accent that was now more Australian than American. Was there ever a time when he might have had another child? Before he married my mom? Or maybe during a rough patch in their marriage? The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that I thought we'd been disconnected. Finally, Robert spoke, his voice heavy with something I couldn't quite identify. Sarah, who told you? My heart started pounding. Told me what? About your brother. The world seemed to stop spinning. So it's true? My dad had another son? No, Sarah. Robert's voice was gentle but firm. Not your dad. Your mom. I couldn't breathe. What? Your mother had a baby before she married your father. She was 17, still in high school. It was a different time back then, 1963. Girls who got pregnant out of wedlock were sent away. Your mother went to stay with an aunt in Boston for her last trimester. She gave the baby up for adoption and never spoke of it again. But that would make the baby... I did the math quickly. That baby would be 62 years old now. Marcus is 32. Marcus? Robert sounded confused. Who's Marcus? I explained about the DNA test, about Marcus being adopted in 1993, about the evidence that strongly suggested we were half-siblings. That doesn't make any sense, Robert said. The only other child was your older brother. Your mother never had any other children that I knew of. Are you sure about the dates? Could there have been another baby? Sarah, I'm certain. I was there. I was 18 when it happened. Your mother was my brother's girlfriend before she got pregnant. The whole family was involved in handling it discreetly. My mind was reeling. If my mother had a baby in 1963, that child would be in their 60s now, not their 30s. And if my father had no other children, then how was Marcus related to me? Unless a terrible thought occurred to me. What if Marcus wasn't my half-sibling at all? What if the relationship was different? What if... I called Marcus as soon as I got off the phone with Robert. We need to wait for those advanced test results, I said. I don't think we're half-siblings after all. What did you find out? I told him about my conversation with Robert, about my mother's secret, about the timeline that didn't match. I don't know what's going on, but something isn't adding up. The next few weeks were agonizing. Jamie came home for the summer, and I tried to act normal, but he could tell something was wrong. Finally, one evening over dinner, I told him everything, about Marcus, about my mother's secret, about the DNA test that didn't make sense. Mom, Jamie said slowly, have you considered that maybe you're looking at this from the wrong angle? What do you mean? You keep assuming that either you or your parents are Marcus's direct relatives. But what if the connection is through me? I stared at my son, not understanding. Through you? But that doesn't make any sense. You share DNA with Marcus because I do. Do we know that for sure? Jamie pulled out his phone, navigating to his DNA results. Look at this again. I share 21% with Marcus. You share 25%. Those numbers are close, but they're not the same. What if we're both related to Marcus, but through different paths? That's impossible. We're mother and son. I know, but... Jamie trailed off, his face going pale. Mom, when's my birthday? March 15th, 2004. What does that have to do with anything? And when did you and Dad split up? Jamie, I don't see... Just answer the question, Mom. I felt a flutter of unease. We separated in July 2007. You were 3. Why? Jamie was staring at his phone, his fingers moving rapidly over the screen. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. Are you sure Dad is my biological father? The question hit me like a physical blow. Jamie, of course I'm sure. What kind of question is that? It's just, Mom, did Dad ever do a paternity test? No, he didn't need to. You're his son. You look just like him. But even as I said it, I realized it wasn't quite true. Jamie had my eyes, my hair color, my build. He'd always taken after my side of the family more than David's. Mom, Jamie said gently, I think we need to have Dad do a DNA test too. Jamie, this is ridiculous. Your father is your father. Then there's no harm in testing, right? I wanted to argue, but I could see the determination in my son's eyes. And if I was being honest with myself, a small seed of doubt had been planted. I'd been so focused on figuring out my connection to Marcus that I hadn't stopped to question Jamie's. Calling David was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. We hadn't spoken in over a year. There'd been no reason to. He'd remarried, had 2 more kids with his new wife, and had essentially started a new life that didn't include Jamie or me. He paid his child support on time and showed up for major events like Jamie's high school graduation. But that was about it. Sarah, is Jamie okay? Those were his first words when he answered, and I felt a stab of guilt. Of course he'd assumed something was wrong. Jamie's fine. But we need to talk about something. Can you do a DNA test? There was a long pause. What's this about? I explained as briefly as I could about Marcus, about the confusing results, about Jamie's suggestion that we needed to verify paternity. Are you accusing me of not being Jamie's father? David's voice was cold. No, we're trying to figure out some confusing DNA results, and Jamie thinks this might help. Fine, send me a kit. But Sarah, for the record, I never had any doubts. Jamie's my son. The kit arrived at David's house in Phoenix 3 days later. We waited another agonizing 6 weeks for the results, during which time the advanced testing on Marcus, Jamie, and me also came back. I'll never forget the day I opened those results. Jamie was sitting next to me on the couch, and we pulled them up on my laptop together. The report was detailed and technical, but the conclusion was clear. Marcus, Chen, and I were not half-siblings. We were aunt and nephew, I read the line 3 times, my brain refusing to process it. Aunt and nephew. That meant Marcus was my sibling's child, but I didn't have a sibling. Except the baby, I whispered. The baby my mom gave up for adoption in 1963. But that still didn't make sense with the timeline. Marcus was born in 1993, 30 years later. Jamie was reading further down the report. Mom, look at this. The next section analyzed Jamie's relationship to Marcus. The results said they were first cousins, but the amount of DNA they shared was higher than typical for first cousins. The report noted that this could happen when first cousins shared more than one grandparent in common, or in cases of pedigree collapse, where family lines intertwined. I don't understand, I said, my head spinning. Jamie's phone rang. It was David, calling with his DNA results. Jamie answered, putting it on speaker. Jamie, Sarah, I just got my results. David's voice sounded strange. According to this, Jamie and I share 12% of our DNA. The website says we're probably first cousins. The room started to tilt. First cousins, not father and son. First cousins. That's impossible, I heard myself say. David, you're Jamie's father. I know you didn't cheat, Sarah. David's voice was surprisingly gentle. That's not what I think happened. Then what did happen? Jamie asked, his voice small and scared. There was a long silence. Then David said, I think we need to figure out who Jamie's biological father is, and I think we need to do it quickly, because I'm starting to have a terrible suspicion. Over the next week, the pieces slowly began to fall into place. David agreed to send his DNA data to the same database as the rest of us, which revealed that he and Marcus were second cousins. That meant they shared great-grandparents. I spent hours on genealogy websites, building out family trees, trying to understand how everyone was connected. David's family was large and complicated, with lots of cousins and second cousins spread across the country. But there was one name that kept appearing in my research. Thomas Chen, David's first cousin. Thomas Chen had been adopted as an infant in 1963. His adoptive parents were Chinese American, which explained his surname. He'd grown up in Seattle, earned a law degree, and married a woman named Jennifer in the late 80s. They'd had one son together, Marcus Chen, born in 1993. The revelation hit me like a truck. Thomas Chen was my mother's baby, the child she'd given up for adoption in 1963. He was my half-brother. And Marcus was his son, which made Marcus my nephew, but that still didn't explain Jamie. I tracked down Thomas Chen through his law firm's website. When I called, I was transferred to his secretary, who informed me that Mr. Chen had passed away from cancer in 2018, but she gave me his widow's contact information. Jennifer Chen was kind enough to meet with me for coffee at a cafe in Seattle. She was a tiny woman with graying hair and sad eyes that lit up when I showed her pictures of Marcus. We've been in touch, I explained. The DNA tests showed we were related, and we've been trying to figure out how. Thomas always wondered about his birth family, Jennifer said softly. He did DNA testing a few years before he died, but he never found any close matches. He would have been so happy to know he had a sister. I felt tears prick my eyes. I wish I'd known about him. I wish we'd had time to meet. Tell me about yourself, Jennifer said, and we spent an hour talking about our lives, our families, our children. When I mentioned Jamie, her face took on a strange expression. Jamie Mitchell? Your son Jamie? Yes, do you know him? Jennifer pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. What does he look like? I showed her a picture, and her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, what? What is it? Sarah, I think I know who Jamie's father is. My heart stopped. What are you talking about? Jennifer's hands were shaking as she pulled up more photos. Thomas and I used IVF to have Marcus. We had male factor infertility issues, but we had one embryo left over after Marcus was born. One frozen embryo that we never used. The blood drained from my face. Jennifer, what are you saying? The fertility clinic we used was Portland Reproductive Medicine. They had a program where people could donate unused embryos to couples struggling with infertility. Thomas and I talked about it after Marcus was born, and we agreed to donate. The embryo was transferred to the clinic's donation program in 1999. I couldn't breathe. Portland Reproductive Medicine. That's That's where David and I went, when we were trying to conceive. We'd tried for 3 years to get pregnant naturally. When it didn't happen, we'd sought help from a fertility specialist. We'd done testing, tried medications, considered IVF, but IVF was expensive and we couldn't afford it. The doctor had mentioned embryo donation as a more affordable option. Couples could receive donated embryos from other patients who no longer needed them. I'd thought we were using an anonymous donation. I'd thought I was receiving an embryo from a stranger. But what if... Jennifer, what year did you donate the embryo? Late 1999, I think. Maybe early 2000. I started to cry. We received a donated embryo in August 2003. The clinic said it came from a healthy couple who'd successfully had one child and wanted to help others. They said it was anonymous. They never told us anything about the donors. Jamie was conceived with that embryo, transferred to my uterus in August, implanted successfully, born in March 2004. My beautiful son, who I'd carried for 9 months, who I'd nursed and raised and loved with every fiber of my being. But genetically, he wasn't mine. He was Thomas and Jennifer's biological child, Marcus's full brother. Oh, Sarah, Jennifer whispered, reaching for my hand. I had no idea. Thomas never knew either. We thought our embryo had gone to a family somewhere, but we never expected to find them. We certainly never imagined this. The pieces were all falling into place now. Jamie shared 12% of his DNA with David, because David was Thomas's first cousin, making David Jamie's first cousin once removed. Jamie shared 50% of his DNA with Marcus because they were full biological brothers. And I shared 25% of my DNA with Marcus because his father, Thomas, was my half-brother, making Marcus my nephew. But Jamie and I shared no biological connection at all. We were linked only through the coincidence that I'd received his biological parents' donated embryo. I drove home in a daze, my mind reeling. When I got there, Jamie was waiting for me in the living room, his face anxious. Did you find out anything? I sat down next to him and took his hands in mine. And then, as carefully and gently as I could, I told him everything. Jamie was quiet for a long time after I finished. His face was pale, his eyes distant. When he finally spoke, his voice was small and scared, like it had been when he was little and woke up from a nightmare. So you're not my biological mother? No. Baby, I'm not. The admission broke my heart. But I'm still your mother in every way that matters. And David's not my biological father? No. But Marcus is my brother. My full biological brother, yes. Jamie stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the street. I wanted to go to him, to hold him, to tell him that nothing had changed. But I knew that everything had changed. Jamie, I need you to understand something, I said. I carried you for 9 months. I felt you kick inside me. I held you when you were born. I stayed up all night with you when you were sick. I taught you to read, to ride a bike, to drive a car. You are my son. Biology doesn't change that. But you lied to me. His voice was flat. I didn't know. I swear to you, I had no idea. The fertility clinic told us the embryo was from an anonymous donor. They never said who. I thought you were genetically David's and mine. That's what we were told could happen with embryo donation. That sometimes the embryo would be a genetic match to one or both recipients. I never questioned it because you looked so much like me. I need some time, Jamie said quietly. I need to think about this. He went to his room and didn't come out for the rest of the day. I sat in the living room crying, terrified that I'd lost him. The child I'd raised, the boy who'd been my whole world for 21 years. Would he still want to be my son, knowing we shared no blood? That night I called Marcus. I told him everything, about Thomas being my half-brother, about the embryo donation, about Jamie being his full biological brother. Holy shit, Marcus said when I finished. This is like something out of a movie. I don't know what to do, I admitted. Jamie won't talk to me. He's locked himself in his room. Give him time, Marcus said gently. This is a lot to process. But Sarah, for what it's worth, you're his mom. He knows that. Biology is just genetics. Family is who loves you and raises you. I want you to meet him, I found myself saying. You're his brother. His biological brother. You should know each other. I'd like that, Marcus said softly. I'd like that a lot. The next morning, Jamie emerged from his room. His eyes were red from crying, but his face was calm. "I talked to Dad," he said. "David, I called him last night." My heart clenched. "What did he say?" "He said he's still my dad. He said he doesn't care about the genetics, that I'm his son and always will be. He said he loves me." Jamie's voice cracked. "And then he told me I was an idiot if I pushed you away because of this." I started to cry. "Jamie, Mom." He crossed the room and pulled me into a hug. "You're my mom." "That doesn't change." I was scared last night. I felt like my whole identity was a lie. But I realized this morning that I know exactly who I am. I'm Jamie Mitchell. I'm your son. I'm David's son. And apparently, I'm also Marcus's brother, which is pretty weird, but kind of cool. We held each other and cried. And slowly, I began to believe that maybe we'd be okay. Marcus came to visit 2 weeks later. I'll never forget the moment Jamie and Marcus saw each other for the first time, standing on my front porch, staring at each other's faces, seeing their own features reflected back. They had the same nose, the same shaped eyes, the same smile. Genetics didn't lie. These were brothers. They were awkward at first, unsure how to act around each other. But by the end of the weekend, they were joking and laughing, sharing stories about their lives, making plans to see each other again. Watching them together, I felt a bittersweet mix of joy and loss. Joy that Jamie had found his biological brother, that Marcus had found the biological family he'd been searching for. Loss that I wasn't part of that genetic connection, that I was now the outsider in my own son's family story. But then Jamie took my hand and squeezed it and said, "Mom, this is amazing. I have a brother. Can you believe it?" And I realized that I wasn't the outsider at all. I was the center. I was the one who'd brought them together. I was the one who'd raised Jamie, who'd taught him to be the incredible young man he was. I was the one who'd reached out to Marcus, who'd searched for answers, who'd uncovered the truth of their connection. Over the following months, we pieced together the rest of the story. My mother had given birth to Thomas Chen in Boston in 1963, then returned home and never spoke of him again. She'd married my father the next year, and I was born in 1978. She'd carried the secret of Thomas's existence for her entire life, never telling anyone, not even my father. Thomas had been adopted by a loving Chinese-American family, had grown up happy, had married Jennifer, and had struggled with infertility. Through IVF, they'd had Marcus, and they'd donated their remaining embryo to help another couple. That couple was David and me. We'd received the embryo, conceived Jamie, and raised him without ever knowing his biological origins. And through pure coincidence, or maybe fate, I turned out to be the half-sister of the man who'd fathered the embryo that became my son. Jamie wasn't just my son. He was also my nephew. His biological father was my half-brother. His biological brother was my nephew. The family tree was impossibly tangled, a web of connections that defied easy explanation. But in the end, it didn't matter. Family wasn't about genetics. It was about love, about showing up, about being there through the hard times and the good. David proved that by continuing to be Jamie's father, even after learning they weren't biologically related. I proved it by being Jamie's mother every single day of his life. And Marcus proved it by welcoming us both into his life with open arms. Excited to have found a brother he never knew existed. We're building something new now. The four of us, me, Jamie, Marcus, and David. It's an unconventional family, assembled by accident and held together by choice. We have dinners together when Marcus visits from San Francisco. Jamie and Marcus text every day, sharing memes and jokes like brothers who've known each other their whole lives. David's wife has even welcomed them both into her home, treating Marcus as another nephew. I think about my mother sometimes, about the secret she carried for so many years. I wish she'd told me about Thomas. I wish I'd had the chance to know my half-brother before he died, but I understand why she kept it hidden. In 1963, having a baby out of wedlock was shameful. Giving a child up for adoption was something you were supposed to forget, to move on from, to never speak of again. But secrets have a way of coming out. DNA doesn't forget, even when people do. I found a letter last month, tucked into one of my mother's old photo albums that I'd never looked through carefully before. It was dated February 1963, written in my mother's handwriting. addressed to the baby she was about to give up. To my son, it read, I hope you have a beautiful life. I hope you're loved and happy and safe. I will think of you every day. I will wonder what you look like, what you sound like, what makes you laugh. I will grieve for you and hope for you in equal measure. You are my son, even though I can't be your mother. Remember that someone loved you enough to give you the best life possible, even if it meant breaking her own heart. I will always love you. I cried when I read those words, thinking about my mother as a scared 17-year-old girl, giving up her baby so he could have a better life. I thought about Thomas, the half-brother I never got to meet, who grew up loved and happy, who became a lawyer and a husband and a father. I thought about the cosmic coincidence that brought his son into my life, that made me the mother of his biological child. And I realized that my mother's love had echoed down through the generations. She'd given up Thomas so he could be loved. Thomas and Jennifer had given up their embryo so another couple could be loved. And that embryo became Jamie, who filled my life with more love than I'd ever imagined possible. It's been a year now since that DNA test arrived. A year since my world turned upside down, since everything I thought I knew about my family was revealed to be incomplete. Jamie finished his junior year at UW and is talking about going to graduate school. Marcus got a promotion at his tech company and is seeing someone seriously. David and I have found an unexpected friendship in all of this. Turns out having your lives exploded by genetic revelations gives you something to bond over. As for me, I'm learning to embrace the complexity. I'm Jamie's mother, even though we don't share DNA. I'm Marcus's aunt, even though we only met a year ago. I'm the half-sister of a man I never knew, connected to him through a mother who kept secrets and a twist of fate that brought our children together. Last week, Jennifer invited all of us to Seattle for what she called a family reunion. It was strange at first. Me, Jamie, Marcus, David, Jennifer, and David's new wife, Lisa, all sitting around a dinner table, trying to explain to the waitress how we were all related. We gave up eventually and just said we were family, because we are. After dinner, Jennifer pulled me aside and pressed something into my hand. It was a photograph, old and faded, showing a young man in his 30s with kind eyes and a warm smile. Thomas, I thought you should have this, she said. You never got to meet him, but he was a good man. He would have been happy to know he had a sister. He would have been thrilled to know about the connection between our sons. I stared at the photo, seeing echoes of my mother's features in Thomas's face, seeing hints of both Jamie and Marcus in the shape of his smile. My half-brother, the child my mother gave up, who lived a full and happy life, who fathered 2 sons who would grow up to find each other against impossible odds. Thank you, I whispered, clutching the photo to my chest. That night, back at the hotel, Jamie found me sitting on the balcony, looking at Thomas's picture. You okay, Mom? He asked, sitting down next to me. Yeah, I said. I am, it's just, this whole thing is so strange, but also kind of beautiful. I think so too. Jamie leaned his head on my shoulder the way he used to when he was little. Hey, Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. When you found out I wasn't biologically yours, did you love me any less? Oh, baby, no. I turned to face him, cupping his cheek in my hand. Not for a single second. You're my son. You'll always be my son. Genetics are they're just information. They tell us where we came from, but they don't tell us who we are. Who we are is determined by the choices we make and the people we love. That's what I thought. He smiled. Because I feel the same way. You're my mom. Marcus is my brother. David is my dad. Jennifer is, I don't know, my biological mother, but also kind of like an aunt. It's complicated. It's very complicated, I agreed, laughing. But it's ours, Jamie said firmly. This weird, tangled, complicated family is ours. And I wouldn't change it. Neither would I realized. Yes, the DNA test had revealed secrets and surprises. Yes, it had upended everything I thought I knew about my family. Yes, it had been painful and confusing and terrifying at times. But it had also given me Marcus, this wonderful nephew who'd been searching for his family and found us. It had given Jamie a brother, someone who understood him in a way no one else could. It had connected me to the half-brother I never knew, allowing me to grieve him and honor his memory. It had even strengthened my relationship with David, bringing us together in a new way as we navigated this strange situation as co-parents. The family I thought I had, just me and Jamie against the world, had exploded into something much bigger and more complex. But it was also richer, fuller, more connected. I thought about my mother's letter again, about her hopes that Thomas would be loved and happy. He was, and his love had created Marcus, who'd found his way back to us. And in a twist that still made my head spin, Thomas's love had also created Jamie, not through any intention or knowledge, but through the simple act of trying to help another couple experience the joy of parenthood. My mother's love, given freely to a son she couldn't keep, had rippled forward through time and space, eventually bringing me the greatest gift of my life. Jamie? Mom? Jamie's voice pulled me from my thoughts. What are you thinking about? I'm thinking about love, I said. About how it multiplies instead of dividing. About how there's always enough to go around. Deep thoughts, Jamie teased. Well, I'm a deep person, I teased back. We sat together in comfortable silence, watching the lights of Seattle twinkle below us. Inside the hotel room, Marcus was video calling his girlfriend, telling her about the family reunion. David and Lisa had gone back to their own room, but had made plans to meet us for breakfast. Jennifer had returned to her home, promising to send me more photos of Thomas. This was my family now. Unconventional, complicated, held together by threads of DNA and choice in equal measure. We were still figuring out how to navigate the relationships, still learning what to call each other, still processing the shock of how we'd all come together. But we were together. That was what mattered. A few months later, I got another surprise. A woman named Patricia Chen, Thomas's adoptive mother, Marcus's grandmother, reached out to me through the DNA website. She was 87 years old and living in a nursing home in San Francisco. She said she'd heard about the family connections from Marcus and wanted to meet me. I flew to San Francisco the next weekend. Patricia was tiny and frail, but her mind was sharp, and her eyes sparkled with intelligence. She showed me photo albums from Thomas's childhood, his first day of school, his high school graduation, his wedding to Jennifer. He was my son, she said firmly. I didn't give birth to him, but he was mine. I changed his diapers and stayed up with him when he had nightmares and taught him to ride a bike. That's what makes you a parent. I know, I said softly, thinking of Jamie. Your mother gave me the greatest gift, Patricia continued. She gave me Thomas, and even though it must have broken her heart, she did it so he could have a good life. I hope she knew, wherever she is, that he did. He had a wonderful life. He was loved every single day. I started to cry. Thank you for telling me that. Thank you for loving him. And thank you for loving Jamie, Patricia said, reaching for my hand. You're a good mother. Thomas would have been proud to know you. We spent the afternoon together, Patricia and I, sharing stories about the sons we'd raised. She told me about Thomas's love of baseball, his terrible singing voice, his habit of leaving his socks everywhere. I told her about Jamie's obsession with Legos as a kid, his talent for math, his kind heart. Before I left, Patricia gave me a small box. These were Thomas's, she said. I want Jamie to have them. His biological father's baby shoes. Maybe someday he'll have children of his own, and he can pass them down. I held the tiny shoes, worn and faded with age, and thought about the incredible journey they represented. From my mother to Thomas to Jamie, love passing down through the generations in unexpected ways. When I got home, I gave the shoes to Jamie. He held them carefully, reverently, his eyes wet with tears. This is crazy. Mom, he said, a year ago I thought I knew exactly who I was. Now I have a brother I never knew about, a biological father I never met, and a family tree that looks like it was drawn by someone on drugs. I know, I said, laughing through my tears. But look at what we've gained.
Look at all the people who love you. Yeah, Jamie said softly.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That summer, we did something unprecedented. We organized what we called the Big Family Reunion. Everyone came. Me, Jamie, Marcus, David, Lisa, Jennifer, Patricia, who made the trip despite her age. David's parents, who'd always treated Jamie as their grandson and weren't about to stop now, and even a few of Thomas's cousins from Seattle, who'd heard about the amazing story of how we'd all connected. We rented a house on the Oregon coast for a long weekend. It was chaotic and loud and sometimes awkward. How do you introduce your son's biological brother, who's also your nephew, to your ex-husband's parents? But it was also beautiful. One evening, we all gathered on the beach for a bonfire. Someone suggested we each share what family meant to us. The answers varied. Jennifer talked about choice, Marcus about connection, David about commitment. When it was my turn, I looked around at all these people, connected by blood and love and sheer impossible coincidence, and I knew exactly what to say. Family is who shows up, I said. It's who stays. It's who loves you when it's hard and when it's easy. A year ago, I thought my family was small, just me and Jamie and David when he felt like being part of our lives. Now look at us. We're a whole tribe, and it's messy and complicated and sometimes confusing, but it's ours. To family, Marcus said, raising his beer. To family, we all echoed. As the fire burned down and people started heading back to the house, Jamie pulled me aside. Hey, Mom, I've been thinking about something. What's that? I want to change my middle name, legally. I was surprised. Why? What would you change it to? Thomas, I want to be Jamie Thomas Mitchell, to honor him, the biological father I never got to meet, but who gave me life in a way. My heart swelled. I think that's beautiful, honey. I think he would be honored. And Mom, I want you to know something. No matter what the DNA says, no matter who contributed what genetics, you're my mom. You're the only mom I've ever wanted or needed. This whole crazy situation doesn't change that. If anything, it makes me appreciate you more. You chose me. Every single day you chose me. I pulled him into a hug. This boy, this man, who'd made me a mother, who'd given my life meaning and purpose. And I'd choose you again, every single time. That night, lying in bed in the rental house, listening to the ocean waves crash against the shore, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. A simple DNA test, ordered on a whim, that had revealed secrets spanning decades and generations. A test that said my son had a twin, when I'd only given birth to one baby. The truth was more complicated than that simple statement could capture. Jamie did have a twin of sorts, a brother who shared his exact DNA, conceived at the same time, from the same biological parents. But that brother, Marcus, was born from a different woman, raised in a different family, living a different life. They weren't twins in the traditional sense. They were brothers separated by circumstance, brought together by technology and determination and love. And me? I was the bridge between them. The aunt who became a mother, the half-sister to one father, the mother by choice to his biological son, the woman who'd carried a baby who wasn't genetically hers, but who was absolutely, completely, undeniably her child. Family, I'd learned, wasn't about DNA. It was about love. It was about showing up. It was about the choices we made every single day to be there for each other, to support each other, to love each other through the complications and the mess and the impossible tangles. My son's DNA results said he had a twin, and in a way, he did. But what the test couldn't capture was the love that connected all of us. The bonds that formed not from shared genetics, but from shared experiences, shared struggles, shared joy. The test couldn't measure how much I loved Jamie, how much he loved Marcus, how much we all loved each other in our own imperfect, human ways. The test couldn't capture the miracle of how we'd found each other, how Thomas's legacy had brought us together, how my mother's secret had finally come to light in the most unexpected way possible. The test showed relationships, percentages and probabilities, aunt and nephew, brothers, cousins. But it couldn't show what really mattered. It couldn't show that we were family. Now that's my story. The story of how a simple DNA test unraveled everything. I thought I knew and rebuilt it into something even better. It's messy and complicated and sometimes still confusing, but it's ours, and I wouldn't change a single thing. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to this wild journey. If you've ever questioned what makes a family or felt like you don't fit into the traditional boxes, I hope my story gives you some comfort. Family isn't about biology. It's about who shows up, who stays, and who chooses to love you. And sometimes, in the most unexpected ways, the universe brings exactly the right people into your life at exactly the right time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. Have you ever had a DNA surprise? Do you have a complicated family situation that turned out to be a blessing? Drop a comment below and share your experience. I read every single one, and your stories inspire me. And if this resonated with you, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit that like button and consider subscribing. Sometimes the most important stories are the messy, complicated, real ones. Thanks for being here with me.